The harem gate didn't creak. It didn't groan. It simply opened like a breath being taken in by the walls themselves. No guards announced her arrival. No voice welcomed her in. Just silence, thick, chilled, and oddly sacred. Layla stood still at the threshold. She felt the sun behind her, the warmth of her village fading with every heartbeat. In front of her lay a shadowed hallway wrapped in veils of silken stillness. She gripped the hem of her dress tightly, as if it could still anchor her to the past. A thin voice broke the air. Step in, no looking back. It came from the matron who had escorted her all the way from the city gate's stern eyes, spine stiff as the cane she carried. Layla stepped forward. Behind her, the gate closed without a sound, like a mother turning away. The marble beneath her feet was cold, sucking warmth from her solace. The hall seemed endless. Pale blue curtains drifted in unseen wind. The air smelled faintly of rosewater, frankincense, and secrets. This was no place for names, no place for memories. Every few steps, Layla caught a glimpse of someone. A girl her age, in a silk robe, head bowed. An older woman, adjusting a curtain, gaze blank. No one looked at her. No one acknowledged her arrival. She could have been a ghost. Is this what death feels like? To enter a place where no one calls you by name, and no one remembers you came. She was led into a chamber, whitewashed walls, a carpet of pale green, a scent of lavender and ink. The receiving room. A woman was already inside. Older than the matron, her hair was silver, coiled into a tight bun. Her eyes were sharp, like glass that had seen too much war. She did not rise, she simply gestured. Layla stepped forward. Speak your name, the woman said. Layla opened her mouth, then closed it. The woman gave a small smile. Good, you're learning. Here, names are not spoken unless summoned. She stood and circled Layla slowly. No bruises, skin clean. Teeth straight, spine unbent, hair thick, eyes not too bold, acceptable. One word, and the life was sealed, acceptable. A servant entered, handed Layla a bundle of garments. A pale silk robe, a translucent veil, a long strip of fabric she didn't recognize. No explanation was given. The servant left without a word. Layla was led down a narrow passage into what would be her room. It wasn't a room. It was a cell dressed in silk. One low bed, a thin blanket, no candle, and a window no bigger than her hand. Through it, she could see a walled courtyard, bare stones, and a single fig tree, already shedding its leaves. There were no mirrors, no drawers, no writing paper, no trace of the life she had before. She sat on the bed. It creaked slightly under her weight, as if startled to be touched. That night, Layla didn't sleep, not because she wasn't tired, but because silence was heavier than she'd imagined. She stared at the ceiling. A thin crack ran across it, sharp and jagged like the edge of a broken wing. Time didn't exist here. There were no clocks. Only bells, distant, hollow, calling for prayer or punishment. She counted 3 bells before her door opened again. A new matron entered, carrying a clay bowl of water. She placed it beside the door and turned. Do not drink all at once. Water is limited in this wing. Her voice held no cruelty, but also no kindness. Do not ask questions. Do not speak unless spoken to. If someone calls your name, you answer. But no one will, not for now. Then she left. Layla stared at the bowl of water. She did not drink. Later that night, she heard whispers through the wall. Not voices, just breath and movement, like someone rolling over in a dream. She lay down fully dressed, veil still on, hands folded over her stomach like a girl already buried. This is the first night I have no name. The first night no one dreams of me. The first night I do not belong anywhere. She remembered her mother's hands. Warm, strong, smelling of olive oil and flour. She remembered a lullaby, not the words, only the way her mother's breath would pause on the sad note. And she remembered a promise: if they ever take you, you must not forget who you are. But how do you remember who you are when no one around you knows you ever existed? The next morning, Layla didn't wake up. Because she hadn't slept, a bell rang. She sat up. The water bowl was still there. She touched it with trembling fingers. Cool, real, she whispered to no one. My name is Layla. Then drank, and the story of her disappearance began. The first true morning in the harem did not begin with sunlight, nor with birdsong. It began with footsteps sharp, measured, echoing through the cold marble corridor like a drumbeat carved into stone. Layla, lying with open eyes on her stiff narrow bed, had been waiting for it. She hadn't slept ... not truly, not since stepping through the gate. Sleep in this place did not mean rest. It was a retreat into breathless darkness, filled with dreams that did not belong to her. A voice came next, dry and clipped. Wake, stand, do not delay. The door opened. Not slammed, not creaked, just opened, clean and exact like everything else in this place. A girl entered. She was young, but her eyes held a practiced emptiness that Layla recognized already. She carried a pale robe and a folded strip of white fabric. She said nothing. Layla rose, dressed herself silently. The silk was too light for the chill in the air. But that was the point. Comfort here was never the goal. Elegance was, silence was, obedience was. Once dressed, Layla stepped out and joined the line girls like her, standing barefoot on cold stone, eyes down, shoulders squared. Faces neutral. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Their silence was the first lesson. They were led to a hall that seemed to echo time itself, white stone. No windows, high ceilings painted in faded gold. The air smelled faintly of rosewater and something metallic, maybe incense, maybe memory. Pasture, said the matron. You must move like water, but stand like iron. They were shown how to walk without sound, how to bow without lowering themselves, how to smile without showing teeth. Layla's knees ached from standing. Her arms trembled from holding a pose, but she didn't falter. She was seen. She was not corrected. That was all the praise she would ever receive. The lessons continued. How to serve tea, how to drape fabric, how to cast your gaze just shy of the sultan's, every movement choreographed, every breath calculated. Never speak unless asked, never cry unless dismissed, never forget who you are not. Layla listened, but more than that, she watched. The older girls moved like mist, effortless, weightless. But their hands betrayed them. Callous fingers, nail beds raw from needlework, joints swollen from silent toil. Every grace came with pain. Midday brought a meal, a thin bowl of warm rice and water, no spoons, no seats. They squatted in silence, eating with right hands, left hands folded in their laps. A girl coughed. A voice came next, dry and clipped. Wake, stand, do not delay. The door opened. Not slammed, not creaked, just opened, clean and exact like everything else in this place. A girl entered. She was young, but her eyes held a practiced emptiness that Layla recognized already. She carried a pale robe and a folded strip of white fabric. She said nothing. Layla undressed with trembling fingers. She washed quickly, efficiently, cold water biting her skin. She didn't look at the others. They didn't look at her. Only one girl spoke. A red-haired girl with quiet eyes and a crescent scar on her cheek. I'm Aileen, she whispered. Don't forget your name. Layla froze. No one had spoken to her directly since her arrival. Not like this. Say it to yourself every night. Names disappear here if you don't protect them. That night, under a thin blanket, Layla whispered, Layla, 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 and felt, just faintly, like she still existed. The days bled together. Wake, train, eat, bathe, sleep, repeat. Some girls were taken. They didn't return. No one asked where. No one was allowed to. Aylin whispered once, "Some go to serve. Some to clean, some to vanish." Layla believed her. She learned to keep her head down, to smile with her eyes, to keep her silence even when her fingers bled from embroidery needles. They weren't taught to sew, just expected to know. Mistakes meant redoing everything, or losing dinner. One afternoon, she pricked her thumb. Blood bloomed on the silk. "No red," hissed the girl beside her, "unless it's thread." Layla dabbed it away with her sleeve. No one saw. She learned. She survived. On the 7th day, a name was called. Not her name, of course. That name was gone. 17. Step forward. Layla stepped. The matron eyed her. "You will assist in the embroidery room. Do not speak. Do not slow. Do not bleed." Layla nodded. The embroidery room was quiet, lined with silk in every shade the eye could name. Women sat cross-legged on cushions, their hands moving in rhythm, stitching stories they'd never speak aloud. Layla watched, then stitched. Her work was clumsy, then passable, then precise. She began to feel something close to peace until she realized peace here was just the absence of punishment. Aylin visited her at night sometimes, just to whisper, "They'll test you soon. They'll send you to serve tea. Or arrange flowers. You'll be watched." "Everything is a test," Layla asked, "and if I pass?" Aylin shrugged in the dark. "Then you're useful. If you're useful, you're allowed to stay. If you're not, then you're forgotten." Layla didn't want to be remembered. She didn't want to be chosen. She wanted to endure. To whisper her name and mean it. Each night, she traced letters on her wrist. Ella, an invisible ink. A prayer, a shield. They hadn't taken her voice. Not yet. They hadn't stolen her name. Not yet. And so, she waited. Like a breath held in a palace of whispers, it began, as many things in the palace did, with a bell, not loud, not urgent. Just a soft, distant chime that echoed through the stone bones of the harem like a heartbeat barely there. Layla froze with her needle mid-stitch, across the room, heads lifted. Eyes didn't meet, but the stillness told her enough. A test was coming. A matron entered. She did not speak. She simply pointed. "Layla, Aylin, 3 others, follow." The word cut through the silence like a blade. No one dared hesitate. They walked single file through corridors painted with gold. Murals of sultans long dead, women faceless and flawless. Nightingales perched in trees that never lost their leaves. Layla's heart pounded with every step. Not from fear, exactly, but from knowing that what came next would either raise her from shadow or cast her deeper into it. They entered a room unlike any she'd seen before, warm, fragrant, with a fountain at its center, soft light spilling from lanterns, like honey on marble. Inside, a single long table. And behind it, 3 women, older, impeccably dressed. Eyes lined with kohl, mouths unsmiling. Not matrons, not servants, wives of the sultan. The highest among the women who ruled from behind the veil. "Tea service," one said. Her voice smooth, but hard. "Begin." The 5 girls moved. Aylin nudged Layla gently toward the leftmost tray. Layla's hands trembled slightly as she poured. Not too much, not too little. The cups were paper-thin porcelain, fragile enough to shatter from breath. She placed the cup before the eldest wife, bowed, stepped back. The wife lifted the cup, sipped, set it down. A long pause, then a nod. Layla did not smile. She only bowed again and stepped into the shadowed wall. "Now," said another, "music." A lute was handed to one girl, a tambourine to another. Layla received nothing. She was to dance. No training, no warning, just the expectation. Aylin shot her a brief glance, worried, then looked away. The music began, soft, melancholic, old as the walls. Layla stood, her breath caught in her chest. Then she moved, not like a dancer, like a memory, like wind through leaves, like a candle flame reaching for something unseen. Every step she took was a question, every pause, a prayer. She did not smile, she did not seduce. She simply existed beautifully, briefly, like the echo of a name once whispered through silk. When she stopped, the room was still. One of the wives exhaled slowly, then said, "She is not trained. But she has soul." They were dismissed. Back to the harem halls, back to quiet. Aylin reached for her hand, but said nothing. That night, the matrons whispered more than usual. Names passed in the dark, Layla's among them. The next day, Layla's pillow had changed. Softer. Her robe, newer. Her bowl of rice came with a sliver of honeyed fig. A reward, a warning. She had been seen. Aylin said nothing, but her eyes watched Layla with a different kind of ache. "Be careful," she murmured. "To shine is to be chosen. To be chosen is to be used." Layla whispered her name longer that night, wrote it down her arm with her fingernail. She didn't want to shine. She only wanted to stay. But the palace does not ask what you want, it only watches and waits. There is a kind of silence in the harem that hums beneath the surface. Not absence of sound, but the tension of too many held breaths. A hush full of unsaid things, of glances quickly averted, of footsteps softened by fear. In this silence, Layla's name began to move, not aloud, never aloud. But in the corners of rooms, in the matron's sidelong glances, in the way her tasks became fewer yet more delicate, she had been seen, not chosen yet, but noticed. On the 7th day after her test, Layla was woken not by the bell, but by a knock. Soft, once, then a voice, low and steady. "Rise, you've been summoned, summoned." The word rolled through her spine like water poured over cold steel. She rose, dressed quickly. Her hands trembled only once when tying the sash, but steadied before the door opened. The attendant waiting for her was not one she recognized. Older, dressed in darker silk, with rings on every finger, each bearing a different symbol. A woman of rank, she did not introduce herself. Just turned and walked. Layla followed. The halls this time were not the usual ones. These were quieter, wider, lined with hanging tapestries and golden oil lamps that flickered as they passed. They climbed stairs she hadn't seen before, crossed through an arched passage into a part of the palace that smelled different, jasmine and cinnamon, and something sharp like metal or ink. They arrived at a small chamber round, with stained glass windows casting colored shadows across the marble floor. In the center, a fountain whispered quietly, water over stone. Waiting there was a woman cloaked in white, veil long, hands gloved. She turned when Layla entered, and beneath the veil, she smiled. "You danced like someone who had once been free," the woman said. "That is dangerous, but beautiful." Layla lowered her eyes, not in fear, but in instinct. "Do you know who I am?" the woman asked. Layla shook her head. "I am the first wife." Layla froze, not in fear. In understanding. The woman stepped closer. Her voice was not unkind. "He has asked to see you. But not today. Today, you will walk. Today, you will learn what he watches." The next hour passed in silence. The first wife led her through gardens hidden behind marble courtyards where peacocks strutted and no other girl walked. They passed fountains shaped like lions, statues of women with eyes closed. "He likes beauty, but not perfection," the first wife said. "Perfection is cold, beauty must ache." They paused before a large door carved with verses. "This is the room of mirrors. You will not enter today, but know it is where he waits when he wishes not to be seen." Layla nodded. She did not ask. As the sun climbed, they returned to the round chamber. Before dismissing her, the first wife turned and spoke once more. "If you are wise, you will never wish for his gaze. But if it comes, stand still, do not run. Even gazelles do not outrun the hunter in this place. That night, Layla lay awake, not from fear, from wondering. What did it mean to be wanted in this world? In the village, it had meant dowries. In the palace, it meant silence, service, submission dressed in silk. She whispered her name, Layla. But tonight, it felt thinner on her tongue, as though the more the palace said it, the less it belonged to her. 3 days later, the bell rang at the wrong hour. Layla was not in her room. She was in the embroidery hall, stitching a phoenix onto a robe she was told was for someone important. The bell rang again, and a matron entered. You, come, no name. But it was her. This time, no long walk. Just a turn into a chamber that shimmered in candlelight. Inside, silence, until she saw him. He stood by the window, tall, robed in black and gold. A profile of power carved in light and shadow. He did not turn immediately. She waited, heart loud in her ribs. When he turned, his eyes were tired. Not cruel, but heavy with memory. He stepped forward. Not close, just enough. Your name? Her mouth opened, then paused. She remembered what the first wife had said. He asked, so she could answer, Layla. He smiled, faintly. It suits you. A name like water. He did not ask her to dance. He did not ask her to speak. He just stood and watched. For what felt like hours, or seconds, time lost its footing. Then, you may go, she bowed, left, and the door closed behind her like the end of a chapter she hadn't realized she'd written. That night, her bed was changed again. Her robe, newer, another sweet in her bowl, and her door dash guarded. Aylin saw it all, said nothing. But when their eyes met across the courtyard, Layla saw something in her gaze. Fear, not for herself, for Layla. To be seen is to be chosen. To be chosen is to be bound. And the binding had begun. After that night, nothing was said, but everything changed. Layla's tasks disappeared. No more embroidery. No more sweeping marble floors at dawn. No more shared meals in cold stone rooms. Instead, silence. She was moved to a new room, small, private, draped in fine fabric, with a bronze mirror that caught her reflection in strange, ancient light. A room not of a concubine, not yet, but of a girl being readied. Each morning, attendants came. They bathed her, braided her hair in loops she had never learned, applied perfume from crystal vials, amber, rose, cardamom. Each evening, they left without words, leaving her alone with her breath, her thoughts. Her name, which she whispered more often now, like an anchor in a storm, Layla, Layla, Layla. Sometimes, she wrote it with her fingertip in the dust on her window, just to remember it still belonged to her. She didn't see the Sultan again, not in person, but he sent things. A comb made of tortoise shell, a bolt of indigo silk, a pomegranate, split and placed on a silver dish, its seeds glistening like rubies. Each gift came without message. Each message was clear. You are not forgotten. The first wife returned once. She sat on the edge of Layla's bed, quiet, composed. He's watching. Layla nodded. He's not cruel, the first wife continued, but he does not understand gentleness. Not truly. Few men raised to power do. She looked at Layla's hands folded, still. You must decide now what kind of flower you will be. Some bloom, some survive. Few do both. Then she rose. You are not the first. You will not be the last. But for a moment you are the one. And then she left. That night, Layla dreamed of her village, of apricots falling from trees, of her sister running barefoot through fields, of laughter hers rising like smoke into a blue sky. She woke with tears on her cheek, not many, just enough to remind her heart it still beat. Days passed like wind across silk. Then one night, the door opened. No warning, no knock. The Sultan entered. He wore no crown, no guards followed. He was just a man, tired eyes, withered mouth. A silence around him that pulled everything else into shadow. Layla stood. She did not bow, she simply waited. He watched her, as if memorizing something only he could see. "You are not what I expected," he said. Layla didn't speak. "You're not afraid?" Still, she said nothing. He walked slowly, his fingers brushing the back of a carved chair. "They tell me you dance like you've lost something." Her voice, when it came, was quiet but clear. "Don't we all?" He paused, then smiled not with joy, but with recognition. "Yes, we do." He sat, motioned for her to join him. She did, not too close, not too far. The silence between them was not empty. It was full, dense with unspoken things. He asked questions. "Where were you born? What is your favorite scent? What do you remember most about your childhood?" She answered, not always honestly but not falsely, either. Just carefully. He listened, and that, more than anything, surprised her. He listened. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, he stood. "You may sleep now." She nodded, He didn't touch her. Didn't ask her to stay awake, just turned and left. When the door closed, Layla sat alone for a long time. Not relieved, not shaken, just uncertain. The next morning, the palace was buzzing. Girls whispered. Names were traded like coins. She spoke with him. He stayed longer than usual. He didn't summon anyone else that night. Aylin appeared in the garden as Layla walked in silence. They sat together on a low stone bench, the only place where speech still felt safe. "It's beginning," Aylin said. Layla nodded, "Do you want it?" Aylin asked. Layla stared at the orange tree above them. The fruit hung heavy, overripe, sweet, dangerous. "No," she said, "but I don't know how to stop it." That night, the door opened again. This time, no conversation, no tea, just music. A player in the shadows strummed a tune Layla didn't recognize. The Sultan said, "Dance for me," and she did. She didn't dance to please, or to seduce. She danced to remember the breeze on the roof of her childhood home, to remember her sister's laughter, to remember that even in silence, she had once sung. Her feet moved like memory, her arms like smoke. When she stopped, she was crying, He didn't speak, just watched. And for once, she knew it was not desire in his gaze. It was something older, sadder, perhaps even respect. He left without touching her, again. But this time, she didn't sleep. She stayed awake until dawn, tracing her name on her arm with her nail. Ella, again, and again, and again. There are walls in the palace that listen. Not metaphorically, no. Layla was sure by now. She had spoken nothing aloud, yet her thoughts often returned to her in strangers' glances, in rooms prepared before she arrived, in questions she had not yet dared to ask being answered before her lips could move. It was a palace built of secrets, and secrets in this place did not rot. They bloomed, After the second night with the Sultan, though still untouched, Layla found herself exiled from the girls entirely. She no longer ate with them, no longer trained, no longer stitched silk birds into robes for ghosts she'd never meet. She was elevated, yes, but elevation, in the harem, was just a quieter form of isolation, A room alone, meals alone, silence that became a second skin. One morning, an envelope appeared on her windowsill. No seal, no mark, Inside, a single page, 4 words, "You are being watched." She burned it without hesitation. But her hands trembled 4 hours after. It was not the Sultan watching, that she could have borne. It was the wives, the older concubines. The eunuchs with eyes like polished obsidian and mouths that rarely opened, but always knew. Even the walls had ears, yes, but the ceilings had tongues. The next day, her favorite robe vanished. The one the Sultan had touched once barely, brushing the sleeve with a quiet, "This color suits you." Gone. In its place, a darker, rougher cloth. Coarse thread, poorly dyed, an insult or a warning. She spoke with him. He stayed longer than usual. He didn't summon anyone else that night. Aylin appeared in the garden as Layla walked in silence. They sat together on a low stone bench, the only place where speech still felt safe. "It's beginning," Aylin said. Layla nodded. "Do you want it?" Aylin asked. Layla stared at the orange tree above them. The fruit hung heavy, overripe, sweet, dangerous. "No," she said, "but I don't know how to stop it. If you survive this, you will not be a girl anymore." Layla finally asked, "And if I don't?" The first wife's lips curled faintly. "Then you will be forgotten so fast, even the mirrors will lose your reflection." 3 days later, the poison came, not in a goblet. Not in her food. But in her routine. Her new attendant was too quiet, too efficient, too rehearsed. She combed Layla's hair not as if caring for her, but studying her. One night, as the girl brushed silently, Layla asked, "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. Too long. "Myra," she said finally, a lie. Layla smiled, held the girl's gaze in the mirror. "If you're going to watch me, do it openly. I'd rather face wolves than shadows." The girl said nothing, but the next morning she was gone, replaced by an older woman who never met Layla's eyes. Later that day, Layla was summoned. Not to the Sultan, not to the wives, to the room of sand, a place she'd only heard of in whispers. A room where the floor was soft, golden, quiet beneath your feet, where your steps left marks long after you'd gone, where games were played that had nothing to do with fun. She was told to wait. She did. Minutes passed. Then hours. Then a girl entered. Not Aylin. Someone new. Pretty. Sharp-cheeked. Eyes too blue to be trusted. They stood facing each other. The matron's voice echoed from behind a curtain. "Speak. We will listen." The other girl spoke first. "You think you're special." Layla said nothing. "You think the Sultan loves you because he speaks to you. He spoke to me too." Still, Layla did not speak. The girl stepped closer. "He will grow bored of you." Layla smiled, softly. "Then I will be free." The girl froze. The matron behind the curtain laughed. Once. "Enough. Leave." Both girls turned. Only one left with dignity. That night, the pomegranate returned, whole, uncut, heavy with promise, and Layla realized this was not a game. This was war, a war fought in silks and silences. A war where every kindness was a weapon, every smile, a blade. She returned to the garden the next morning, sat where she used to with Aylin. This time, Aylin was already there, waiting. "You made it through," Aylin said. Layla nodded. "They'll come for you again." Each time, sharper. Each time, more quietly. Layla looked toward the orange tree. Its fruit was gone now, just leaves and memory. "Let them come," she whispered. "Why?" Layla's voice was soft but certain. "Because I remember my name." Layla learned, in time, that the greatest power in the harem was not beauty, not obedience, not even favor. It was the art of vanishing. To know when to disappear, when to shrink, when to become a shadow in your own life, so that no one could find a place to stab you. She didn't want to be invisible, but she learned how to seem forgettable when it mattered. It saved her more than once. The Sultan stopped visiting, not suddenly, gradually, from every night. To every few nights, to none. There were no angry words, no dismissal, just quiet, and Layla understood. She had become a painting on his wall, still admired, but no longer alive. Others took her place. She recognized their faces, new girls dressed in smiles they hadn't earned yet. And yet, she didn't feel pain. What she felt was colder, sharper, freedom. Because with his absence came invisibility again. And with invisibility movement. She began to walk again, at night, alone. The palace, after midnight, belonged to the brave. And the ghosts, she learned new corridors, passageways not marked on any map. She followed eunuchs at a distance, learned where the laundry was cleaned, where the letters were burned, where the night maids wept. She did not speak, she just learned. One night, she found a door she hadn't seen before. Wooden, simple, without guard, she touched it. It opened, inside, a library ... Not grand, not gold, just books. Scrolls, ink ... words, forgotten by men, kept by someone. She stepped inside. There, she met him. An old man, skin like leather, eyes clouded with time. He wore no rank, no ring, just silence. He looked up when she entered. "You found it," he said, as if he'd been waiting. Layla said nothing. He pointed at the shelves. "Choose." She stepped forward, fingers trailing the spines of books. "Can I read them?" "Can you read at all?" he asked, amused. She nodded. "Barely." "Then you may stay." And so began her second education. Every night, for an hour, she read. By candlelight ... by shadow. History, poetry. Letters from queens long dead. Words written by women who once sat in rooms like hers. Women whose names were erased, but whose voices bled through ink. She learned about the first concubine to bear a sultan's heir. How she had poisoned a rival with pomegranate seeds soaked in opium. She read of a girl who fled the palace in men's clothing and wrote plays under a false name. She read letters never sent. Prayers never answered, stories never finished. She finished them in her mind, and with every word, Layla felt something return, not her name, herself. During the day, she returned to her room, played the quiet role. A girl forgotten, but now armed. It was then the first wife called for her. Again, this time, in the sunroom. The warmest chamber in the palace. It overlooked the western garden, full of white roses. No one sat there unless they had power to wield. Layla entered without fear. The first wife was pouring tea. Delicately, as if every drop was a secret. "Sit," she said. Layla sat. The first wife placed a cup before her. "You are no longer being watched." Layla blinked. "Why?" "Because they think they've broken you." "Because you are no longer a threat," she sipped, then added. "That means you are free to become one." The first wife studied her. As one might study a knife, beautiful, but dangerous. "Do you want to stay?" Layla hesitated. "I don't know." "Then decide soon." "Because you'll be given a choice soon." Layla frowned. "What kind of choice?" The first wife looked toward the garden. "To marry a man you do not know. To bear his heirs. To be sent away, dressed in jewels, carrying nothing of yourself." She paused. "Or to stay here, and rise. To what?" The woman's smile was faint. Knowing, power, Layla said nothing, but when she left, her hands trembled. Because this time, the prison had opened a window, and the air smelled like future. She returned to the library that night. The old man was gone. In his place, a book left open. A single sentence underlined: "Freedom is not in leaving, it is in choosing to remain on your own terms." The sun rose that morning with a different hue, softer, almost apologetic. Layla awoke not to a bell or a knock, but to silence. But it was not the comforting silence she had known. It was the kind of silence that meant decisions had already been made. Her robe was gone again. In its place, white silk, embroidered with gold threads, heavier than anything she'd worn before. It lay across the foot of her bed like a verdict. Next to it, a note: "You are summoned. Dress accordingly." No name, no seal. But she knew who had written it. Not the Sultan, not the first wife. This was the handwriting of the palace itself. She dressed slowly. Her hands did not tremble this time. She tied the sash tightly, pulled the veil across her shoulders, and faced the mirror. For the first time in months, maybe ever, she saw someone who did not flinch. They led her not to the Sultan's chamber, but to the throne room of the moon. A place spoken of in whispers, where fates were decided, where girls became wives or warnings. The walk there was long, but Layla felt as if she were floating. She passed courtyards she had never seen, statues of lions whose eyes followed her, tiled walls covered in calligraphy older than memory. And then the doors opened. Inside, a circle of women, all seated, draped in fabric so fine, the air itself seemed hesitant to disturb them. In the center, a single cushion, waiting. Layla stepped forward and knelt without being told. The silence deepened. Then a voice, familiar, velvety, deadly. Layla, the first wife. But not as she had been before. Today, she wore her title fully, her crown, her judgment. You have been watched. You have been tested. And you have not broken. She rose slowly. The Sultan has expressed no desire to wed, but his council demands a consort, one who is loyal, intelligent, unassuming. She stepped closer. You have a choice. Layla looked up. Leave, or stay and rise. No one moved. Even the air seemed to pause. Layla breathed once, twice, and spoke. What does it mean to rise? The first wife's smile was thin. It means you will never belong to yourself again, but you will command others who dream too. Another voice spoke, unknown, older. From the far end of the circle. If you marry, you will leave the palace. If you serve here, you will never leave. Layla asked, will I be safe? The first wife laughed softly. No, but you will be dangerous. And that was the answer. Not safety, not love, not freedom, power. The only currency that remained once everything else had been taken. Layla closed her eyes, saw her village, the orchard, the dust, the barefoot days. And then she opened them. I will stay. No applause. No congratulations. Just a nod. And the sound of a bell being rung once. Somewhere far away. A new record in the palace's book of secrets. That night, her room was moved again. Not larger, but higher, overlooking the eastern courtyard. Where the sun would strike first, she received her first task before dawn. A scroll, sealed. No instructions, but she understood. Information, power. The palace had opened its spine, and she was now writing in its margins. Layla sat at her window as the sun rose. She did not smile, but she did not hide either. And the light, soft, pale, promising, found her face at last. Layla's rise did not come with drums. It came in whispers, in the soft sound of curtains drawn aside just a second longer when she passed. In the way guards began bowing, not deeply, but noticeably. In the way other girls started to disappear from her path, like mist under sun. Not out of respect. Out of fear. The scrolls kept arriving, each one more complex than the last. Reports of shipments, letters between wives, inconsistencies in spending. The harem was not just silken scent. It was a machine, and now she had access to its levers. Her days were quiet, but her nights were filled with parchment. She read of disputes between favored concubines, jealousies that led to fainting spells and sudden illnesses. A cook accused of slipping ground rose thorns into a rival's stew. And underneath it all money. Always money. The Sultan may have owned the empire, but the women ran its blood, and now she was part of it. The first wife summoned her again, not for advice, for audience. This time, they met in the bath of smoked glass. Steam rose like ghosts from the floor. The first wife stood, cloaked only in her presence. Layla entered, bowed slightly. The first wife spoke, while washing her own hands, deliberate, slow, ritualistic. There are those who wish to return you to silence. Layla raised an eyebrow. Let them try, a half smile. That's the spirit, but understand they will not use daggers. She turned. They will use men. That night, a new guest arrived in the palace, a prince, not from their empire. A diplomatic guest, young, sharp, and unmarried. He was shown the harem's grandeur, the artistry, the restraint. He asked questions, polite ones, but his gaze found Layla far too often. And lingered. The next day, she received a gift. A pendant, turquoise, set in silver, unmarked. No note ... but a meaning as clear as blood on snow. Someone was suggesting she could be bought. Layla said nothing, but she did not wear it. Later that week, the prince found her in the garden. No guards, just moonlight and jasmine. He spoke with charm, genuine, perhaps. They say you're the new star. Layla smiled softly. Stars only shine because they're burning. He studied her. I could offer you more than this place. A pause, freedom, lands, a title. Another pause, a future. Layla looked up at the moon and said, I once wanted freedom. He waited ... But I learned that freedom offered by men is just another kind of prison. She turned to him. If you truly wanted to help me, you'd fear me, not desire me. She left him in the garden, stunned ... And behind her, the jasmine bloomed stronger than before. The next morning, she found a cup of tea in her chamber. Unusual. She never drank tea in the morning. The attendant smiled brightly. Layla didn't touch the cup. Just asked, who sent this? The attendant hesitated. A gift. From the prince. Layla smiled. And poured the tea into a nearby vase ... Later that night, the flowers in it shriveled. She visited the first wife. Explained nothing. Just placed the withered flowers before her. The first wife raised an eyebrow. So it begins. Layla nodded. I'm ready, but readiness is a fragile shield. That evening, a letter arrived. No name, just 4 words. They have your sister. Layla dropped the scroll. The palace spun. She hadn't spoken of her sister in months, hadn't dared. Had tried to keep that part of herself buried beneath gold and silence. But someone had found it, and now used it. She went to the first wife again. This time, with fire in her ... They've taken my sister. The first wife said nothing, only looked out the window. This is the price of mattering. Where is she? Outside these walls. But not beyond your reach. Why? The first wife's voice was quiet, cold, because they know love makes you soft. Layla's breath hitched. I thought you were helping me. I am, but not gently. Layla left with one thought. If they think my love is weakness, I'll turn it into a weapon. And for the first time, she felt the harem not as a prison, but as a forge, and she would come out tempered, sharp, unbreakable. Layla's rise did not come with celebration. It came with caution, with calculated distance, with the sudden awareness that to many eyes now lingered too long. She was no longer invisible, and in the harem, visibility was a risk. The scrolls began arriving daily. They were never addressed, never sealed, but they came with quiet purpose, inventories, letters intercepted. Rumors filtered through layers of servants. It was clear. Someone was feeding her information ... Perhaps the first wife. Perhaps the sultan, perhaps neither. Perhaps the palace itself had chosen her. She spent her nights reading by candlelight. Her hands ink-stained, her mind restless. There were patterns in the pages, threads of betrayal woven into silk. A concubine found with bruises, but no assailant. A midwife dismissed without cause. A eunuch quietly replaced. And between them all, the prince, a foreign noble sent to observe the empire. But really, he was here to choose. He visited the gardens too often. Asked a few questions, smiled too quickly, and always found Leyla ... One night, he approached her under the orange tree. The leaves were beginning to brown, the fruit long gone. "Do you know," he said, "that in my country, a woman like you would not be hidden?" Layla smiled thinly. "In mine, a woman like me is only hidden because she's dangerous." He laughed, but it did not reach his eyes. "You could leave this place." "I could make that happen." Layla tilted her head. "Why would I want to leave when I've only just learned how to rule?" His face flickered surprise, amusement, warning. He left without another word. But the next morning, there was a pendant at her door. Silver, turquoise, foreign ... no note. But a message unmistakable. "You belong to someone now." She did not wear it. Later, a servant appeared with tea she had not requested. Layla stared at the cup, then at the girl holding it. "Tanu, too silent. Who sent this?" "A gesture," the girl replied, "from the prince." Layla said nothing, took the cup, and poured its contents into the roots of her courtyard fig tree. By dusk, the tree's lowest leaves were blackened. She met the first wife that night, wordlessly placed the dead leaves before her. The first wife looked down. "You've declined his offer." Then, "I decline all cages, even gilded ones." Layla looked her dead in the eye, especially those. The first wife nodded ... good, but her voice was distant, unsettled. "You should know there are others who think differently. They believe you are rising too fast. They want to correct that." Layla folded her arms. "Let them try." That night, a note was slipped beneath her door. 4 words, "They have your sister." The world tilted. Layla hadn't spoken of her sister in months. Had buried that memory deep beneath every silk robe, every composed smile. Someone had found it, and now held it like a blade. She ran to the first wife. The mask gone, breath ragged, they took her. The first wife didn't ask how she knew. Didn't feign ignorance ... She simply poured wine. "This is the price." Why her?" "Because they couldn't take you. Help me." The first wife looked into her glass. "I have helped you more than you know." "But this, Layla, this is your test. I passed your tests." "Not mine," she whispered. "Theirs." Layla left with nothing but fury in her chest. The kind that burns slow ... The kind that survives poison ... The kind that writes history. She returned to her room, tore open every scroll, looking, searching, cross-referencing names, dates, places. And then one name stood out, Sarin. A merchant's daughter from her province. Now listed as a seamstress in the Sultan's household. She hadn't been in any records before. Layla requested a dress be tailored. And Sarin came, not alone, watched by a matron. But Layla saw her sister in the curve of her mouth. The trembling of her fingers. She said nothing. But when their eyes met, Sarin blinked once, then again. A signal they used as children, when they were afraid. Layla swallowed the ache. Played her part, ordered extra fabric ... Dismissed them both. That night, she returned to the garden. The prince was waiting, as if summoned by fate ... "You look pale," he said. Troubled, Layla smiled. "Only fools look calm in times like these. You're calling me a fool." "I'm saying I don't want your pendant." "Then what do you want?" She stepped closer. Close enough to smell the sandalwood oil in his collar. "I want you to go home." He blinked. "Excuse me. Leave. Take your gifts. Your poison, your offers. Is that a threat?" "No," she said. "A kindness. I'm giving you a chance." "And if I stay?" Layla didn't blink. "Then I'll treat you like everyone else who underestimates me." He left that night, or so she thought. The next morning, his chamber was empty. No note, no farewell, just silence. In its place, a new scroll. Her name, written at the top ... Below it, a question. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Layla dipped her quill in ink and wrote only one word. Always, the palace was a body. Its walls, its skin, its servants, its veins, and its secrets its heartbeat. Layla had learned to listen. Now, she would make it speak. Her first move came quietly. She requested the gardener, not the head one, an old man who rarely spoke, but his apprentice, a boy of 15. Too young to be suspicious, too curious to be cautious. When he arrived, she offered him tea and 3 questions. How many guards watch the east gate? He blinked. 2. 1 naps. How often does the fabric delivery arrive? Thursdays, before noon. Do you want gold or favor? He hesitated. Favor. Layla smiled. Good, then I won't have to bribe you to do the right thing. That night, she sent a letter through him, folded into a lotus petal, slipped beneath the courtyard stones. Delivered, she hoped, to Sarin. No names. Just wait 2 days. Watch for the scarf. Day 1 passed in silence. On day 2, she wore the scarf red with gold thread. At noon, Sarin entered her chamber. Alone, Layla poured water, closed the windows, lit incense. Only then did she speak. Are you safe? Sarin nodded, barely. They think I'm just a seamstress. You were taken. Why? Leverage. Who? Sarin hesitated. One of the old concubines. The ones from before your time, she said. If you got too high, I'd be used. Used how? Married off, or silenced. Layla felt something inside her freeze. Then crack. Do you want to leave? Sarin looked away. Do you? Layla didn't answer, but they both knew the truth. That night, the first wife summoned her again. This time, she was not alone. 4 other women waited. One of them, the matron who trained Layla. Another, the concubine who once tried to poison her. And one, cloaked in green, face unreadable. The first wife stood at the center. The Sultan is sick. Layla's heart skipped. How sick? Sick enough to make men hungry. And the harem, a battlefield again. The woman in green stepped forward. Her voice was low, musical. We have a proposal. Layla said nothing. You've become influential, more than we expected. That wasn't your plan. It was, but not this fast. Then slow me down. The woman smiled. Or we could help you rise further. On one condition. Layla's eyes narrowed. What condition? The prince who left, he didn't leave. He was taken. He knew too much. Layla's blood turned to ice. They think you told him. I didn't. We know, but they don't. The first wife stepped closer. So we give them a scapegoat, Layla whispered. Sarin. The room went still. No, Layla said. Think, the woman in green urged. 1 girl, for an empire. She's your sister. She died quickly. No, then we all die slowly. Layla stood, back straight, eyes steel. If I give them my sister, then I am no better than them. You'll lose everything. Then I'll build something new. She left the room. No permission asked, no apology given. The first wife did not call her back, but behind her, Layla could feel the tremor ripple outward. The palace had felt her choice. She moved quickly. Within the hour, she gathered 4 names. Servants loyal to her, guards who owed her favors, cooks who'd seen too much. She didn't sleep, she planned. A web, woven with vengeance. The next night, a small fire started in the laundry room. No damage, just smoke, but in the confusion, Sarin vanished. Not officially ... but quietly ... through a gate whose guards still napped. With the gardener's boy leading her. Layla returned to her chamber, waited ... prayed. When dawn broke, a scroll was slipped beneath her door. 3 words, she's gone. Layla wept. Not loudly, not long, but fully. And then she stood. She dressed not in silk, but in black. A mourning not for death, but for the girl she had been. The one who waited, who feared, who begged. That girl was gone now. The palace did not react to Seren's disappearance. Not immediately, but Layla knew better. Real power never screamed. It waited, measured, chose its moment. The first wife did not summon her for 3 days. No scrolls, no tea, no glances in the corridor. Which meant something was building. Layla used the time well. She walked the halls she once feared. Whispered to those she once ignored. Watched who looked away, and who looked too long. She began seeing the cracks, a matron slipping out after midnight. A guard speaking to a eunuch from another wing. A concubine faking an illness to stay in the royal infirmary. And in those cracks, she planted seeds. One by one, she made offers, small ones. I heard you miss your daughter. I can help send letters. You're owed 3 days of rest. Why haven't they given them? He hits you, doesn't he? I can fix that. She never asked for loyalty. She offered understanding. And in return, they began to shift. One glance longer, one nod, one extra second before closing a door in her face. It was enough. On the 4th day, the first wife summoned her. But not to her chamber, to beneath the throne room. A place few even knew existed. There were tunnels there, dusty, cold, used by those who needed to be forgotten. The floor beneath power, where the dirt collected. Layla was led by 2 silent guards. No words, only footsteps, down stone stairs, past locked doors. To a room with no windows. And inside, waiting. Not the first wife, but the council. 3 women, 1 man. Faces she had seen in paintings, but never in person. They did not speak at first. Then the man. Do you believe in punishment? Layla raised an eyebrow. I believe in balance. The oldest woman leaned forward. Your sister is gone. Layla said nothing. That's not balance. She was taken. She was released. A beat. By you. Layla didn't deny it. She had no role here. She was leverage. Then choose better levers. The youngest woman chuckled. You're bold. You're late to notice. The man stood. There are 2 paths for women like you. He raised her fingers. Become irreplaceable. Or become forgotten. Layla stepped forward. There is a third, which is become feared. Silence. Then the eldest woman nodded. You may go. She was not escorted back. She found her own way, and when she reached her chamber, there was a single candle lit. Beside it, a note, congratulations. You are now part of the game. That night, Layla dreamed of fire. Not wild. Controlled, burning in lines, in symbols. Forming a language only she could read, and when she woke, she finally understood. Layla woke before the call to prayer. Not from noise, but from clarity. Something inside her had settled. The fear that once clung to her ribs like damp cloth had burned away. In its place, calculation. She dressed plainly. No jewels. No perfumes. Power didn't need scent to be noticed. She walked to the east wing where the seamstresses worked. Paused. Spoke softly to the head needlewoman. I need new uniforms. Simple, dark blue, no embroidery. The woman raised a brow. For who? You'll know when they arrive. By midday, 5 women appeared at Layla's door. Each had once owed her something. A midwife she'd defended. A cook she'd shielded from blame. A bath attendant she'd taught to read. A guard sister she'd helped relocate. And an old matron who once beat her, now half blind and forgotten. Layla did not smile. Only poured tea and said, I need watchers. They said nothing, but none of them left. Over the next 7 days, the palace began to shift, not visibly, subtly. Gossip reached her ears before it reached the guards. Stolen items were returned before they were reported. And the courtyards grew quieter when she passed. Her circle had no name, no title, no rank, but it had reach. And in the palace, that was everything. The first wife noticed. She called for Layla under the fig tree. For the first time, she was not veiled. Her face, though older, glowed with STOML. What are you doing? Layla met her gaze, surviving. You've gone beyond that. You once told me to be dangerous. Not reckless. I'm not. Layla stepped closer. I'm precise. The first wife studied her. Then, quietly, do you know why I let you live? Layla didn't answer, because I saw a mirror, and I wondered if it would crack. Has it? The first wife's voice lowered. No, it's begun to reflect things I forgot I was capable of. She turned away. Be careful, Layla. Power loves no one. That night, a package arrived. No note. Inside, a ring. Gold, etched with the emblem of the Sultan's personal guard. A signal. Layla slipped it on. Then wrote 3 letters. 1 to the kitchen. 1 to the Eastern Archives. 1 to the Musicians' Guild. Each short. Each containing a single phrase. The night of candles is near. Within the week, 3 things happened. The kitchen reported missing saffron. A scroll from 20 years ago vanished from the archives. And at the next evening performance, the lead musician played a song banned since the Sultan's grandfather. No one knew what it meant, but those who watched Layla began to whisper a new word. Shafira, a name from the old tongue, meaning the one who remakes silence. Layla stood at her window that night, staring at the moon. She did not smile, but she no longer hid. She was not building a rebellion. She was building a replacement. It began with a smell, burnt spices, smoked myrrh. A hint of something older, metallic, sweet, dangerous. Someone had lit incense in the Western Hall. A hall reserved for silence, for mourning. Now, it was full of voices. Not loud, but steady. Measured, almost rehearsed. Layla stood at the balcony, watching. Below, 6 women sat cross-legged in a circle. No guards, no attendants. Just themselves and a tray of ash. Each dipped her thumb into the grey dust, pressed it to her forehead, spoke 1 sentence, then passed the tray. Layla listened, not to the words, but to the cadence. They were taking vows. By nightfall, the Western Hall was sealed. Guards posted, reason, cleaning. But everyone knew something sacred had occurred. Something forbidden. The first wife summoned her by dawn. This time, the air between them crackled. What have you done? Layla responded with a tilt of the head. You once said the palace is a forge. Yes, I've begun to shape the blade. The first wife's eyes narrowed. There are spies everywhere. Then let them listen. Let them know. I am no longer hiding a beat. This is not rebellion, Layla. No, she said. This is the rehearsal. That evening, the Sultan's physician collapsed. Poison, they whispered. But not the lethal kind. The kind that blurred memory, twisted speech, turned truth into fog. No one could trace it. No one dared speak Layla's name. But when the physician woke, he named her, and yet no punishment came. Instead, the Sultan summoned her. For the first time in months, the room was dark, only oil lamps flickering. The Sultan lay reclined, pale, but sharp-eyed. He gestured. Come, she did. They tell me you're causing unrest. I'm causing awareness. Of what? Of how deeply this palace is rotting. Silence. Then. And what would you do with such knowledge? Rebuild. He laughed, hoarse, but real, from within. There's no outside left for someone like me. The Sultan studied her for a long while, then said, The first wife fears you. She fears herself. You're too bold. And you're too late. He leaned forward, coughed once, then whispered, You will never be queen. Layla did not flinch. I do not want a crown. Then what? The roots. He paused. You would rather control the ground beneath the throne than sit on it. Layla nodded. Because roots outlive empires. When she left the chamber, she was no longer summoned, not by anyone. The palace waited to see if she would burn or bloom. A day passed, then 3, then on the 4th night, a curtain in the main hall was found slashed, a symbol drawn in ash on the marble beneath it. The ancient eye, a warning, a sign that someone was watching, and that silence would no longer protect the guilty. Layla stood in her chamber that night. No guards, no light, just the wind against the stone, and said aloud, to no one, begin. It came without warning, no horn, no scroll, no whisper, just a knock. 3 soft taps, at an hour when no one knocked. Layla opened the door. 4 guards stood, 1 eunuch. None looked her in the eye. You are summoned. No title, no pleasantry, just wait. She didn't ask where. She followed. Through halls she thought she knew, but had never seen like this. They turned left where no hallway should be. Downstairs she had never noticed, and entered a room colder than stone. Inside, the tribunal. 7 figures, veiled, backlit by oil fire. Layla had heard of it in rumors. A secret council, higher than the first wife, older than the sultan. They ruled when kings were weak, and kings had always been weak. The voice came from the center, not old, not young, genderless. Do you know why you're here? Layla raised her chin. Because I no longer pretend. A pause. You've begun rituals, unapproved. I've restored language long buried. You've spoken with foreign spies. He came to me. You poisoned the physician. He was already rotting. You threaten the order. The order no longer serves. A second voice sharper. Then what do you serve? Layla's answer came without pause, memory, and what it can become. The tribunal whispered among themselves, in a language older than her. She stood silent, until one raised a hand. Do you know the cost of what you're doing? Do you? A third voice, bitter. You think you're remaking the empire? No, Layla said. I'm unburying it. You will not be punished. Not yet. Why? Because you have not failed, and we do not execute those the people begin to follow. Layla's breath caught. They knew. The figures stood, and one said without turning, but if you falter, we will not kill you. We will erase you. When Layla left, dawn had not yet broken, but she felt the shift. The walls had seen her, the palace had judged her, and decided to wait. She walked to her room slowly, hands steady, heart quiet, and found a note on her pillow, 1 line. They tried to make me kneel too. No name, no signature, but she smiled. Because now, she was not alone. By the 5th day after the tribunal, something changed. Not loudly, but unmistakably. A bowl of fruit appeared at her door, with figs, the same fruit once banned after a concubine had choked to death on one. Now, it meant only one thing. An invitation, no note, no name, but Layla knew where to go. She arrived at the old hammam, the abandoned bathhouse in the northern wing. Empty since the last fire, forgotten by most. But tonight, steam curled through its broken tiles again. Inside, 4 women waited. Not veiled, not guarded, just present. The cook who fed the entire western quarter. The scroll keeper who oversaw every incoming foreign document. The bath servant who had once been punished for singing, and a former concubine aged now, but once rumored to be the Sultan's first love. None of them bowed when Layla entered, but none turned away. The former concubine spoke first. So, you stood, Layla responded without hesitation. You watched, we listened. The scroll keeper added, we've been waiting, years, maybe decades, for someone to call the silence out by name. Layla stepped forward. Then why not speak first? The cook replied, eyes weary, because we weren't believed. And we weren't ready to die. Layla sat, cross-legged, equal. And now, the concubine leaned forward. Now, we think we might win. They talk through the night. No manifestos, no plans for riots, just maps, access routes. Loyal servants, unmonitored kitchens. Who controlled linen? Who touched the ink? It wasn't rebellion. It was realignment. By morning, they had only one agreement. We will not tear the walls down, Layla said. We will move the rooms. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. A eunuch once mute suddenly had a voice at the gate. The forgotten widows were reassigned to the Sultan's inner chambers. A blind musician played a song or one remembered. And everyone felt, the palace whispered, something is blooming. The first wife met Layla at dusk. No summons, no ceremony. She appeared like a ghost. In the corridor outside Layla's chamber, you've started something. Layla didn't deny it. So have you. A long pause. Then, what happens if you lose? Layla's voice was quiet, but her words struck steel. Then I will be legend. That night, the sky turned red with dust. A storm, the guards said. But the cooks knew better, and so did the palace cats. They vanished, all of them. The old woman called it a sign. The air is shifting. The ghosts are listening. When Layla slept, she dreamed of a throne made of mirrors. It did not reflect her face. It reflected the women who stood behind her. It began with a gift, an ivory comb, no note, no sender. But Layla recognized a pattern, carved into its back, 7 swans in a circle. The symbol of the House of Meron, a family long erased from official records after they tried to usurp the throne. Only 3 people in the palace would know what that symbol meant. And one of them was Leyla. She placed the comb on her desk, untouched, and summoned no one, because now she understood. When the warning is beautiful, the danger is already inside. That night, one of her new guards, Safa, didn't show for duty. By morning, she was found in the garden, alive but broken, tongue cut, eyes open, hand clutched around a scrap of silk, Layla's color. The first wife visited before sunrise. No words, just a look, then she said, they've stopped watching. Now they're hunting. Layla didn't cry. She knelt beside Safa, closed her eyes, and whispered, you don't have to speak. You've already told me enough. By noon, whispers began. That Layla had ordered the punishment. That she was purging her own ranks. That she'd begun to fear betrayal. Even her own circle, the women of the harem, grew quiet. One didn't appear to their meeting. One avoided eye contact. One sent a note instead of coming. Layla read every silence like scripture. She met with the musician, the blind one, and asked, when the notes begin to waver, do you stop playing? He smiled, toothless. No, I play louder. To remind the strings who they belong to. That evening, she walked the southern hall. Alone, a risk, but she needed it. And there, she found something she hadn't expected. Blood. Not much, just a smear beneath the painting of the Sultan's mother. And a petal of jasmine on the floor. No one used jasmine anymore. It was considered too honest a scent. But Layla remembered Serin loved it. She followed the trail, 3 corridors, a stairwell, into the old laundry chamber, and behind a hanging sheet, Serin, alive, eyes wild, skin bruised, but standing. Layla froze. Then stepped forward. I thought I got you out. Serin's voice cracked. You did, but I came back. Why? Because you didn't leave. They embraced. No tears, just breath. 2 lungs remembering rhythm. Serin brought a message. Someone inside your circle is marked. They wear your color. But they're listening to someone else. Layla didn't ask who. She didn't need to. Because trust is not about certainty. It's about knowing where to bleed first if you're wrong. She returned to her quarters, removed the ivory comb, and wrote on it, "I know you, I forgive you, but I will still stop you." She sent it with no name attached. By morning, one woman from her circle was gone. No one asked where, not even the others. Because now they understood. This was no longer survival. It was succession. The note arrived folded inside a prayer mat. No seal, no signature. Just one line, written in Persian language only 3 women in the harem still spoke. "Come alone, where the wall cracks behind the house of falcons." Layla read it twice, once with caution, once with nostalgia. Because only one person ever called her falcon in that language. Azar. He had been a shadow, a scholar, a spy. The Sultan's former advisor exiled after a failed rebellion that Layla herself had helped bury with silence. He was the first man to teach her how to lie with grace. And now he wanted to meet. She didn't tell the circle. Didn't even alert the guards, just slipped through the tunnel behind the archivist's chamber, wrapped in a servant's robe, and made her way through the cracked wall where the palace touched the old falcon roosts. There, beneath a broken sky, he waited. Azar had not aged well, or perhaps he had aged too honestly. His beard was white, his hands trembled slightly, but his eyes still sharp as flint. "You remember how to arrive silently," he said. Layla approached slowly. "You taught me. I taught you many things. And I outgrew them all," he chuckled. "Did you? You're still here. Still dancing in their cage." Layla's voice chilled. "I've broken the bars. But not the shape of the bird." They stood in silence. Then Azar asked, "Why did you help bury me?" Layla's voice didn't waver. "Because you stopped fighting for change and started fighting for power. And now you do both, but I know the difference." He smiled then, genuine, a hint of something close to respect. He reached into his robe and handed her a scroll. "Unsealed, unlabeled. This is not for now. But soon, the Sultan's youngest son will be declared heir. And when that happens, this scroll will become a weapon." Layla didn't open it. "What is it?" "Proof of a crime, of a lie, of a mother who isn't who they say she is." "Why give it to me?" "Because I tried to change the empire through swords, and I am doing it through servants." "Exactly, and yours are winning." Layla took the scroll, didn't thank him. Because this wasn't a gift, it was an investment. As she turned to leave, Azar said, "They will offer you the throne soon." Layla paused. "I don't want it." "Then you're smarter than I was." "A bit, but they'll offer it anyway." "Why?" "Because it's easier to crown the storm." "Then fight it." Back in her quarters, she sealed the scroll with wax. No crest, just a thread of black thread. Symbol of unfinished truce, she placed it beneath her floorboards. Because weapons are more powerful when unseen. The next morning, she resumed her routine. Calm. Composed, but with new weight in her gaze. The kind only earned by walking into shadows and leaving with something sharper. And in the courtyard, where the servants whispered, she met the ghost and came back smiling. Something's coming, they were right. Because the empire had given Layla nothing but stone. Now, she had learned how to carve her own door through it. The drums began before dawn, low, measured, final. In the Palace of Veils, that rhythm meant one thing: succession. All servants were ordered to silence. Curtains drawn, no visitors, no movement beyond designated paths. The Sultan had chosen his heir, and the empire would now owe his name. Layla sat in her chamber, the scroll from Azar still beneath the floorboards. She had not read it. Not because she feared what it said, but because she already knew. The Sultan had 3 sons. The eldest, too brash. The middle, too sickly. The youngest, born of a woman whose face had changed too many times to be remembered. Layla had seen the signs weeks ago. The extra guards near the nursery, the silk ordered in royal crimson, The quiet rehearsal of coronation songs in the southern hall. She wasn't surprised, she was prepared. But her circle wasn't. The scroll keeper panicked. If they name him, our plans collapse. The cook slammed her palm against the marble. We backed the wrong thread, and the tapestry eats us. Even Sarin whispered, "Can we stop it?" Layla stood, calm, and finally unrolled the scroll. Inside, not words, but a family tree, names scratched, arrows connecting cousins and consorts, and at the bottom, in bold, Mother, Samira of the North, alias Asina, once accused of poisoning the Emir of Gudar. That name Asina was whispered like a ghost in the archives. She had disappeared, until now, Layla said quietly. If they crown her son, they crown a lie. Then we expose it, said the scroll keeper. Layla shook her head. No, we offer a different truth. She didn't go to the Sultan. She went to the first wife, uninvited, unannounced, and placed the scroll in her lap. This is your chance to write your own ending. The first wife's hands trembled. I buried this name, and now it unburies you. The first wife looked up, eyes full of fire not seen in years. What do you want? Layla answered without pause. Not the throne, then what? A voice in every law, in every decision, in every future. That afternoon, the drums changed, faster, disrupted. And by sunset, the announcement had a delay. The courtiers gathered, velvet-robed, eyes sharp. The Sultan, pale and frail, sat beneath the golden canopy. He raised a hand and said, "We reconsider." Gasps, ripples, and from the crowd stepped the first wife. For the first time in public in 7 years, she spoke one sentence: loyalty is not inherited. It is earned, and with that, the coronation was postponed. Layla didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. She just walked back to her room, slowly, and found a note on her pillow. One word, written in blood-red ink. Next, the attack didn't come at night. It came at breakfast. Bread was late. The tea tasted off. And 3 of the young concubines were missing from roll call. No alarm, just a slow, creeping sense that something had slipped. Layla sat still, then said, calmly, "Find the cats." The cook blinked. "What? The palace cats? If they've disappeared again, something's burning." They found 4, dead, by the fountain. Neck snapped, no blood. And under one paw a thread of crimson silk. Layla's color. The message was clear. You've been seen, and you're next. Within hours, the circle split. The bathmaid disappeared. The scroll keeper was caught crying. The cook stopped speaking to anyone. Only Sarin stayed close. "We knew it wouldn't last," Sarin said. "But not this fast." Layla replied, "It's not ending, it's shifting." That night, the first wife summoned her again. Her face was bare, her hands trembling. "They tried to remove me," she whispered. "Who?" "The boy's mother, Asina. She has favors owed. Old ones. I saw a dagger beneath my cushion. And then nothing. They pulled back." Layla knew why. "Because I'm still here." The first wife gripped her arm. "If you fall, I fall. This is not alliance. This is a chain. Then hold tight." By dawn, a rumor had spread. The Sultan had collapsed. No confirmation, no denial, and no one allowed near his chamber except one. Asina. Layla walked to the south garden, alone, and found her waiting. Draped in ivory, eyes sharper than glass. Asina, the real queen behind the curtain. "You play with shadows," Asina said. "I cast them," Layla replied. "You think I fear you? You should. I know your name, a beat. Do you know mine?" Layla asked. Asina frowned. "You are a servant." "No," Layla said. "I am memory, and memory doesn't kneel." Asina stepped closer. "I don't need to destroy you. I only need to wait. You burn too hot. Even fire consumes itself. Layla whispered. Then I will take you with me in the smoke. That night, the Sultan died. No ceremony, no announcement. Only silence, the kind that buries legacies. The palace woke into mourning. But no black cloth was hung. Because no one knew what version of truth to believe. And Layla stood in the garden, watching the palace from outside. As if it no longer belonged to her, or to anyone. She said, quietly, to Sarin, this isn't war anymore. Then what is it? Inheritance. They gathered in the hall of mourning. 12 men, 3 women, 1 empty throne. Each carried a scroll, sealed in wax. Not names, votes. Tradition demanded silence. Respect, deference, but tradition had never met Layla. She stood by the wall, not invited, not forbidden. She was neither heir nor counsel, yet no one asked her to leave. Because silence had learned to fear her, the first wife arrived, veiled. But her eyes flickered toward Layla, a silent nod, an anchor. The Grand Vizier cleared his throat. We mourn, we restore, and we choose. 3 phrases, centuries old. Then the votes began. One by one, the scrolls were opened. The eldest son, 4 votes, the middle, 1. The youngest assigner's son, 6. Tension, the final vote would decide. The vizier opened the last scroll. Pause. Brows furrowed. Then read aloud. Layla of no house, no blood. But all voice, the room gasped. Even the first wife looked shocked. Someone had written her name. And with it a crack in the system. The vizier sputtered, this is unacceptable. She holds no lineage, no noble blood. Layla stepped forward, yet here I stand. This is not how the throne works. Then maybe the throne works wrong. A signer entered, late, deliberate. Eyes like frost. This is rebellion. Layla turned to her. No, this is reflection. You built mirrors. I simply stood in front of them. A whisper ran through the court. She's not royal. She's not male. She's not chosen. Layla raised her voice. I am not royal. I am not male. I am not chosen. I am here. And that is already more than most of you can claim. The first wife stood, removed her veil. I cast the final vote. Silence. For Layla. Gasps. 2 votes now, unofficial. But undeniable. A breeze moved through the hall. A change. A signer stepped back. But before she left, she said, You'll never wear the crown. Layla replied, I don't need the crown. I already have the empire's attention. That night, Layla did not celebrate. She sat in the garden, among jasmine flowers and dead leaves, and whispered, I was never meant to rule. Then why stand? Sarin asked. Layla looked up, because no one else would. The trumpet blew 3 times. The air in the palace thickened, with heat, incense, and anticipation. At high noon, the Sultan's successor was to be declared. Banners of crimson were hung, courtiers dressed in silver and gold. The royal guard lined the marble steps with unreadable eyes, and behind them, Layla watched. She was not summoned. She was not expected. But she stood at the top tier of the southern balcony, the same place once reserved for foreign queens. The vizier stepped forward, his voice, hollow through the courtyard, by decree of the late Sultan, and by the will of the High Council. We declare His Highness, Prince Molik, son of Samira of the North, our rightful heir. Polite applause, not thunderous, not defiant. Just, required. Layla didn't move, but her gaze swept the crowd, and something struck her. Not a glance, not a gesture, but an absence. The people weren't looking at Molik. They were looking up at her. A ripple of whispers spread like wind. That's her, the one who stopped the coronation. The one they feared, the one they didn't name but couldn't silence. Moloch approached the days, young, poised, perfect. He spoke with care, with training, with practiced dignity, but no one remembered his words. Because Layla stood without speaking, and yet she said more. Inside the kitchens, an old maid whispered to her apprentice, "He may sit on the throne, but she already sits in the story." That evening, as the sun bled orange over the domes of the palace, Layla returned to her chamber. Sarin awaited her. No words, just an envelope. Inside, a letter, no sender, only one sentence. Even kings kneel in memory's temple. Layla burned the letter, not from fear, but because its truth no longer needed keeping. Later that night, she wrote her own letter. To no one, to everyone, and sealed it with ashes, not wax. She placed it inside the folds of a jasmine flower, and let it drift into the wind from her balcony. If they write histories, she whispered, let them struggle to name me. Let me live in the cracks between their certainty. The next day, graffiti appeared in the streets of the outer city. Long live the voice, the empire did not sleep easy. Even with a new sultan, even with order restored, even with scrolls rewritten, because they still whispered her name. She stood when none dared, she spoke when silence was sacred. She changed everything and asked for nothing. The new Sultan Prince Moloch called for unity. For calm, for forgetting. But forgetting doesn't obey crowns, it obeys fear. And Layla had replaced it with something far more dangerous. Possibility. So they began to erase her. Her name was removed from servant logs, her quarters reassigned, her face banned from court painters' brushes. But you can't erase a ghost still breathing. Sarin found her in the old garden, wearing a robe of mourning. You're not dead, Sarin said. Layla smiled. No, but they've begun the funeral. In the city, things turned darker. 3 poets disappeared. A pamphlet praising her was outlawed. A boy was beaten for carving her initials into a market wall. Still, the whispers grew. Because oppression doesn't stop memory, it sharpens it. The first wife warned her, "You've become what they fear more than rebellion." Layla tilted her head. What's that? Hope. That night, as candles burned low, a messenger arrived. Face covered. Voice quiet. He handed Sarin a message sealed in black wax. It read, "If she does not disappear, we will make someone close to her disappear." Layla read it, then folded it, and burned it. This is their last game. Sarin grabbed her arm. Then let's not play. Layla answered, no, let's rewrite the rules. The following morning, Layla vanished. No farewell, no trail, just her room untouched. And on the table, a single jasmine flower pressed into a sheet of silk. In the weeks that followed, the city grew tense. The Sultan ruled, but rarely smiled. The first wife began appearing in council, speaking more, listening less. But in the alleys, the taverns, the corners of kitchens, women told stories of a girl with no name, who stood taller than kings, and taught the empire one truth. You cannot silence a voice that learned to echo. Years passed, Moloch ruled, the banners changed, new ministers rose, old laws were rewritten, mostly for show. But one rule never returned, silence the servants. Because once, one of them had become too loud to erase. Children played in the courtyards of the outer city. Girls carved jasmine into their hair ties. Boys scratched L onto the walls when guards weren't looking. Some thought it stood for liberty. Others whispered, it means Layla. She come back. She didn't, not for a decade. Then, on the day of the moon eclipse, a woman walked into the great library. Unnoticed at first. Hooded, weathered, alone. She walked to the archivist's desk and whispered a name. Falcon. The archivist paled. Nodded. And handed her a key. She didn't enter the library. She entered the chamber beneath it, the one that had been sealed since the last sultan died. Inside, she found dust, silence, and a single chair, facing east, she sat, she waited. By nightfall, 3 women entered. Older, sharper, marked by power. They bowed not from obedience, but from recognition. Layla looked up. Eyes calm, hands steady. We begin again. And in the morning, the empire began to shift. Not from war, not from revolution, but from a whisper returned. They never called her Sultan, never gave her title. She never asked. She simply became the one they invoked when all else failed. What would Layla do? Where is her voice now? How do we become her? In the end, Layla did not rise to power. Power fell toward her, and in the distant provinces, far from domes and scrolls, a girl once asked her grandmother, "Is Layla real?" The old woman smiled. "Does it matter?